Hello, everybody. It is Sarah Loudby, host of Unmuzzled, a podcast. Today, I have a terrific guest, and I will tell you, I saw him through the Live Like Rue Foundation TikTok page because people that help us manage the TikTok page actually followed him. And then I found that out that he is local to me. So now Dr. John Murray is in trouble because he's on my radar. But he does something very important, and that is in-home euthanasia. When I tell you that is probably one of the top 3 questions I get and things related to that, I'm not kidding. So I'm excited to talk to him. We will be to him in 1 second. Presenting sponsors, you're up. Thank you so much to our presenting sponsors. Canine Cruise is the place to take your pet. They offer dog and cat boarding, dog daycare, pet retail, and mindful day school. Tons of indoor space with a huge yard. Canine Cruise is your one-stop shop for professional pet care in Chicago. Kiki's Corner Natural Pet Foods in downtown Winfield, just a block south of CDH Hospital on the railroad tracks. Kiki's has all your food and health aid needs for dogs and cats. Kiki's Corner for a healthy, happy pet. Thank you, sponsor. Dr. Murray, I'm bringing you right in. Hello, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So while I have you, everybody go follow him on TikTok or Instagram. That's his handle there. But the first thing I noticed is you're obviously young and you're fresh out of vet school. You just graduated in 2024.
Yes.
How difficult was vet med?
It was definitely pretty intense. It was a 4-year program after college, so that aspect of it was a lot. But it's been good since I've been out. Quality of life has definitely improved greatly since being graduated.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that too. Just there's a lot of chat in vet med about your mental health and the health of anybody really in vet med, and that includes Live Like Rue. I mean, we deal with a lot of loss every day, and so do you. But the first question, I think, is, and I'm sure a lot of people ask you this, why did you go this route? Because this is something that is difficult. It is not easy to walk into a pet owner's home and have them say goodbye to their pet in your presence. So why did you go this route?
Yeah. I honestly I don't want to say stumbled upon it, but came upon it, pretty quickly after graduation. We were living in Des Moines at the time, and there was a lot of the community coming into the vet clinic I was working at there, asking if anybody offered, any of these services. And unfortunately, nobody did at our clinic or any of the surrounding clinics in Des Moines. So there was kind of a, lack of opportunity, there for pet owners to have this option at home. So that kind of got me, thinking, hey, I wonder if I could, offer this type of service. And, we started it in Des Moines, or I started offering it in Des Moines, and it was really an overwhelming response by the community. Definitely, in my opinion, such a better option for pets to go through, their last moments at home where they're most comfortable. And then, a couple months ago, we just recently moved here to the Chicago suburbs, and it has been, again, there's a couple other in-home euthanasia veterinarians that provide this service, but definitely, keeping me very, very busy, unfortunately, a lot of times 7 days a week. So it's been, pretty busy, and another, great response by the community here. And I'm just grateful to be helping the pets here in the Chicago suburbs.
Yeah, like I said at the top, I will tell you, this is probably the thing. I first get a lot of questions about how do I know when it's time. We talk about the quality of life scale, which I use. I use for my own old pets that I have all the time. We only take in old pets. But the other question I get is, how do you know when it's time? Which I know you have counseling for that, which I think is so important. And I tell everybody, a lot of people listening know the bigger in-home euthanasia companies in this area. But I've started to work with, individuals like you, where it's almost like a concierge vet, which we also see a lot of that now. We also see that with human medicine, is people leaving these big companies and really providing more of a one-on-one service, which nowadays, that's really what people need. But it is so hard to book a in-home euthanasia in hours, minutes, even a day. It is so busy. There's such a need for it. So I'm so glad that you're in this area just to have another resource and another person. But you can only be so many places at one time. And I think that's important. And people, even with these bigger companies that have a lot of veterinarians on staff, it is just always overbooked. And I think what we see a lot is, it's one thing to want to be in the comfort of your own home, but then a lot of pets hate the vet. So the last thing you want to do is have this, again, we don't always know what pets are thinking, but we don't want to have these last moments in a place that they despise, right? So that's really what your goal is, to have comfort.
Most definitely. And that is, I do work at an emergency center a couple days a month here in the suburbs too. And it, really tugs on my heartstrings when a pet comes in, in their final moments for, end of life services. And, they're afraid, they have to get taken to the back and get a catheter placed and things like that. And it can be really tough. A lot of owners ask me every day when I go into their homes, oh, how do I do this? And, not kind of being naive about it, but I say I would much rather prefer, this avenue or this option where we are now compared to, when I'm in the emergency clinic and end of life services are needed, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's gonna make me cry. I swear, it's so hard. And then, I think too, we see, unfortunately, people that can't afford euthanasia in their home. So what we provide at Live Like Rue, especially if the pet is, really does not like the vet, is we provide that care for them. And, they always ask me, can we get the memorial gifts? Can we get the paw prints? Yes, absolutely. Get whatever you want. We're covering it. We have a special fund for this. So that part of it too is so important for people to realize, we got their back, because I think it is really hard for pet owners, especially nowadays, to afford some of these things. Can you go through a bit, we talk a lot about anticipatory grief on this podcast, and just, ways to go about dealing with that. We also provide therapists for our Live Like Rue clients. But for you, you really have the opportunity to talk to owners about, here's what to look for. I know a lot of your TikToks too are kind of like, here are the things that you should look for to know when you should probably have a conversation with you or the vet. So can you go through your process for that?
Yeah. So I guess first and foremost, I kind of started the social media just I won't say on a whim, but I just thought, there really wasn't many people that I saw sharing kind of this information as a veterinarian and in that platform. So I kind of started it just a couple of weeks ago, and it's honestly been an overwhelming response so far. All the comments I'm getting, people are sharing their pictures and their memories of their pets that they've lost. And it's every time I log on, I'm just taken back, because it's, tons of messages, DMs and things like that. So that has been, fantastic, and kind of, really has me excited to keep posting and going through, more content and trying to help more pet parents on kind of a larger scale. But a couple things, I first and foremost tell owners that most owners are never going to feel like it's the perfect time. You're never going to, wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm feeling confident in my decision and I'm going to go through with it. That's very rarely the case. So having that, kind of precedent set that they, in their head are understanding that, even though they're not super confident that they're making the right decision, but I am there, supporting them and walking them through this process.
So hard. I mean, I think people always have regrets. They think, oh, did I do it too late? I mean, there's people that say, did I do it too late? And honestly, I bet that happens more often than too soon, and you will have regrets if it's too late. You will, because it is not easy. It's not. So too, I like that you talked about behavior youth, because this is something that, wow, I mean, I've been talking about for 14 years after, volunteering at an open admission shelter. There is, especially there's medical, there's behavior, we're out of space, euthanasia. There's no more cages, and the animals keep coming in because they have to take every single animal at Chicago Animal Care Control. But there are times, unfortunately, when a dog cannot be fixed. When I say fixed, There's something going on with them that no trainer can train out of them. And unfortunately, for the safety of the public, usually these are human aggressive pets. Euthanasia is the best option. Now, this, 10 years ago was taboo. A rescue would euthanize a dog and the dog would just disappear. Now rescues are a lot more forthright and forthcoming about what happened to the dog. And they're very honest with their supporters because they feel like transparency is the best. Do all rescues do that? Absolutely not. But the good ones do. But for you, you've had to experience this where unfortunately a dog cannot be, and it doesn't even have to be just a dog. I know we always talk about dogs, but it could be a cat. It could be really anything. But it is really a mind F. I don't want to say the word, but it is for the owner, a healthy dog euthanizing that pet.
Yes. I recently had a case here, and it was, extremely difficult. Kind of talked on the phone initially before the appointment and kind of went over all the avenues that they've, tried and the, thousands of dollars. I think this owner reported was, just high of $25,000. And that's just a incredible amount, in my opinion, trying to save and correct, their dog's decisions that they've had since it was little. But unfortunately, after that they've, sent an owner to the hospital a couple different times, and, it's unpredictable and kind of happens out of nowhere and no recognitionable pattern either. That's when it can make it really, really difficult. And, owners definitely, she said it took her almost a year to come to this decision for her pet. So I just can't imagine, thinking about this instance for that amount of time is definitely not anything taken lightly. And then, on the kind of the flip side, to have some sort of feeling a lot of grief or regret that you're making the wrong decision, can definitely be pretty tough. It's definitely controversial, like you mentioned before, but some dogs, this is just my personal opinion, that they can go through all these different steps, and unfortunately they're not able to be, their behaviors aren't able to be corrected. And in my opinion, I feel like they are living in kind of a state of fear, for days, weeks, months at a time. And, it kind of raises the question, is it fair to the dog to be living, and kind of internally in their own head like that? And that's, when behavioral euthanasia typically comes up.
Yeah. And I also have a pet care business. I hate when somebody says a dog is aggressive when they're not, because they're reacting. So yes. What you're seeing is a reaction to something else, a mailman, a construction worker, another dog. It's not aggression. That's how they react. And that's why I think you have to be careful with those words, because aggression, especially human aggression, needs to be taken really, really seriously. If that reaction turns into aggression, and my goal is to keep my clients in a bubble so that nothing like that happens. And to be honest with you, these reactions normally are not aggressive, but I do think, when you have a pet that is aggressive with a child, or aggressive because there's a toy sitting there and they want it, or there's food, and you have done, and I feel so bad for owners, because I feel like you said, they feel like they failed the dog, and they did. It's $25,000. She did everything she could, but the risk is far too great to mess with. And that's always what I say. Again, I hear a lot of these stories. People often will come to me as a last resort, like, hey, is there like a sanctuary this dog can go to? Is there somebody that doesn't live in a condo or have other dogs, or will never see another dog? And like you said, that's not fair to that dog to live like that. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions. It sucks. We know that for sure. But yeah, I know that is still controversial, but I do give rescues a lot of kudos for being transparent when something doesn't work out, because you have supporters that have been following that dog's journey the whole way, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. It's crazy. And then just a little bit, this is the last one, but just for you, obviously you're young, you love this work, and you probably always will. But I always ask this question to vets and vet techs too. Like, I have so much respect for vet techs. How do you kind of keep from getting burnt out? Because you said before, like, this has become, 7 days a week, some weeks. And I know it's not like, 12 hours a day, but if it's emotional, it's tough. So what do you do to kind of prevent that?
It's kind of the age old question. Unfortunately, I don't know that I've mastered it. I really try to keep grounded, and kind of after every single appointment, I come back to my own dog here. And I feel like it really makes me appreciate, having a healthy young dog here in my house. I, love taking her on walks. We recently trained for a half marathon together. So she was running with me, 8, 10, 12 miles at a time, and she absolutely loved it. And I feel like that part, really made me appreciate, her life now currently. She's laying underneath my desk right now sleeping. But I feel like that really helps, kind of rewire my brain and make me feel, really appreciative for what, the bond I have with my current dog. I do like to work out a decent bit. So I feel like that aspect does, if I have a hard day or a couple hard cases, taking some time off. I recently got into pickleball. So joined a little bit of a pickleball league too. So that definitely helps. I had one day, it was a crazy busy day, had a bunch of appointments, and then, neighbor texted me and we went and played pickleball for a couple hours in the evening, and that kind of completely just reset me and was kind of got out of a little bit of rut that I was in, because it definitely can be, emotionally taxing. I kind of remind myself, because of course it can get routine going, from appointment to appointment, driving all around the suburbs, things like that. But before I go into any appointment, I remind myself that, unfortunately I'm kind of walking into these people's last moments ever with their pet. And that I need to give them the best experience possible. And that is something that I try to stick with. And kind of getting a little sidetracked from your original question, but that's definitely something that I try to remind myself, because it truly is that this is some of the worst days of these people's lives. And I'm just walking into the house kind of completely blindsided, not knowing, what I'm about to experience. So I just try to keep a very level head and kind of match, their energy in their home.
Yeah, that is so hard. I mean, I've opted for in-home youth for most of my dogs. Again, we take older dogs, so we had one puppy. That was the worst experience in my life. So now we take old broken Chihuahuas. But I was going to say, you definitely live in the suburbs playing pickleball. It's a good one going. It's so funny. Awesome. Dr. Murray, you have been a great guest. Everybody go follow his Instagram and TikTok. You will learn a lot. I appreciate your time, and best of luck to you. You're so young.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care. Dr. Murray, everybody, go check him out on TikTok. He's doing great work. I was very impressed by his TikToks. Supporting sponsors, you're up. Thank you to our supporting sponsors. On the corner of Montrose and Troy in Chicago's Irving Park neighborhood, you'll find a hidden gem known as Templestowe Pub. They have a great selection of local draft beers, and the Malort is always flowing. Oh, no. Join us for a charity bingo event or a tap takeover with a local brewery. Don't want to leave your dog at home? All good, bring them along. Whether you're throwing darts or playing a banger on the jukebox, you're guaranteed to have an awesome time. So head on over to 3135 West Montrose and look for the old style sign. The Canine PT is Chicago's highest rated dog physical therapy clinic, and they're dedicated to enhancing the lives of your four-legged companions as they age or when recovering from an injury. Give the gift of pain relief to your furry friends. They also offer a discount for rescue dogs. For more information, visit thecaninepT.com. Thank you, Dr. Murray. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. I'll see you next week.